Hello, everyone. Welcome to our lunch and learn today. Hopefully, you can hear me loud and clear. We're just going to wait a couple of moments to see if we have any other attendees, but it's great to see a lot of you are in and here already, and hopefully enjoying a sunny day. Yeah, today we're going to be talking about Gen Z and moving with the trends. And the format of the day is going to be, again, we're going to welcome our CEO and founder of eventrac, Aaron, the unofficial Bill Gates of the event registration world. And then we'll be hearing a little bit from myself. So Aaron's going to start off with a recap of some of the trends we saw in 2024 and where we saw some growth. Then going to talk specifically about Gen Z in mass participation events. And then I will take over and we'll go into a little bit of detail about the tools on the platform that you can use to not only attract that next generation, but then also retain that generation. And then Aaron's going to finish off with a little bit on the bigger picture. So I hope you enjoy it. Aaron, it's over to you for now. And yeah.
Cool. Thanks very much, Angus. I don't think I've ever been described as Bill Gates before, but yeah, I'll take it. So yeah, as Angus says, what we're going to cover today is just looking at the Gen Z generation in mass participation. It's a generation a lot of people are talking about at the moment. Clearly, they're producing some good growth in this space, and we just want to go into a bit of a deep dive about that generation and look at some of the tools you can be using and implementing within your businesses to help you attract and retain that generation. So in 2024, we put out a trends report, and that report really looked at the industry as a whole. So that was taking a kind of a bird's eye view of the mass participation space, and we were looking at the trends and how they changed over the course of 2024. So if you haven't seen that yet, you can see that from our newsfeed, probably in the bottom right of your admin panel, and that gives you some great insights into many different components and aspects of this space. But what we're going to focus on today is the age groups and how they changed in 2024. So the first slide here is kind of showing three key graphs that we picked out from that report. And the first one shows the actual growth by age group. So first thing you'll probably notice here is that 20 to 24 has real strong growth. And we've lost the numbers, unfortunately, on the graph, but we saw a 92% growth rate in the 20 to 24-year-olds, which is in the sweet spot of the Gen Z, closely followed by the 25 to 29. So clearly we saw really strong growth in that age group last year, and hopefully that trend will continue into this year. Now, what this graph doesn't show is how that contributed to the overall growth. Our report summarized that the industry grew around about 9%. So that's us looking at events we've worked with for more than 2 years, and we looked at events that were like for like, and that gave us a number of around about 9% growth. When we included new events that those same accounts had added, that number grew to about 16%. If you look at England Athletics, they had it around about 11%. And if we go over the pond to America, Run Sign Up put out a report, and they had it for, I think it was 8.2%. So clearly the industry saw good growth in 2024. And what this graph is showing is how those age groups contributed to that growth. And so now, what we're seeing here is a slight shift to the right. So more of that millennial generation, but also your older Gen Z as well. So still really strong growth in that area. So the 25 to the 39 is what produced the most growth in the industry. And then if we zoom out now to the overall picture, this is the total number split by age group. And what we've done here is we've included 2023 data alongside the 2024 data, so you can get a feel for how that's changing. In both cases, we saw the 40 to 44-year-old age group was the biggest. So there's more 40 to 44-year-olds in mass participation than other generations. But what's interesting here is we've added a trend line so you can see how this is changing. It's starting to flatten off. So there was a definite bell curve in 2023 and in previous years where there's a sort of a strong spike in that 40 to 44. As we came into 2024, we've started to see that flatten a bit. So that means the younger generations are starting to catch up that slightly older generation there, which is clearly good news for everyone in this space. If we can get more young people coming into it, it will hopefully lead to more growth going forward. So if we look at the Gen Z in particular, that's what we want to talk about today. Firstly, who are they? So they were born between 1997 and 2012. They are digital natives. So this generation has grown up with smartphones, social media, They regularly use platforms like TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram. They're integral parts of their daily life, and they're great at building online communities and connecting with people globally. They're a budget-savvy generation, so they tend to prioritize saving and investing over spending, and they have a strong focus on sustainability. So this generation really cares about the environment. It's one of their top priorities. It can often shape their lifestyle choices, purchasing decisions, and even careers. And they tend to be skeptical of brands that don't align with their values. They're also health and wellness focused. So this is a generation that prioritizes health and fitness, both mentally and physically. They tend to see fitness as more of a social activity. So if you look at the Strava report, which came out at the end of 2024, again, a great report for you to look at. They reported that 40% of Gen Z want to do more workouts with friends in 2025. And they have a preference for authentic experience. So this is, yes, a digital first generation, but they value the face-to-face interactions. They tend to prefer events which combine social elements with unique experiences, things like group fitness challenges, community building, or live meetups. So where do they spend most of their time outside of the usual work, study, sleep, etc.? This is a stat I was quite shocked by, but 4 to 5 hours a day is spent by this generation on social media. So clearly a lot of time they spend interacting with those platforms. 1 to 1.5 hours a day is usually spent on some form of fitness activity. That could be either physical or sort of a mental, like meditation. But clearly they have sort of an interest in that area. So these kind of pose some great opportunities, I think, for event organisers of mass participation events. If we take a deep dive and look into the social platforms they're using, we've compiled some data here from mainly the British audience. So we've looked across various different sources to find out where this generation spend most of their time on those social platforms. TikTok comes in first. 47% of British Gen Z regularly engage with TikTok. And we're not talking just a few minutes here. We're talking to the tune of 27 hours a month on TikTok. So a lot of time spent there. YouTube comes in second, 45%. Instagram, 44%. Snapchat, 44%. And Facebook trails the way at about 36%. So Facebook we're seeing now is used lesser by the younger generation. They tend to use it to stay in contact with the older generation. So it's not as used by the Gen Z Facebook compared to some of the older counterparts. So now if we look at the sort of the Gen Z and mass participation and some of their priorities when choosing events. So firstly, they're looking for memorable experiences and a sense of community. So they seek experiences that go beyond just the race itself. So they're looking for unique, immersive, and engaging activities where they can connect with others and feel part of a community. I think community is a key word that we're going to see a lot of in this space. This is a generation that wants to share. They want to come together. They want content they can post on their social media, etc. And they're looking for that in your events. Inclusivity and diversity. Gen Z expects events to align with their values of inclusivity, diversity, and representation. We think they're more likely to participate in events that are welcoming to people of all backgrounds, genders, abilities, and fitness levels. Social proof is a big one. 50% of Gen Z trust the opinions of their friends, peers, or social media influencers, which is, I think quite surprising. But when they're making purchasing decisions, they look for social proof. So you need to have social proof front and center on your channels, particularly your website and places like that. Environmental impact. This is a generation that is really, conscious of the environment and the impact that your event is having on the environment. So they tend to favor organisers who are making and demonstrating efforts to reduce waste, minimize their carbon footprint, and adopt sustainable practices. And finally, personalization and flexibility. This is a generation that expects experiences to be tailored to their needs. So they're looking for things like customization options, flexible distances, team entries, beginner-friendly distances, and things like that. So what you can do to attract Gen Z runners. So what I'm going to do is sort of talk through 4 key areas. We're going to get Angus back on throughout those, and he's going to sort of demonstrate some of the tools we've got within eventrac. And this is really where you can, I think, learn a few things and hopefully implement them into your business. So firstly, if we look at that experience, so creating the memorable, personalized event experience, and this really starts before the event itself, so in the build-up. And one of the first places we think you should look at is your website. Does your website reflect the quality of your events? Time and time again, we come across organisers who have bad quality of websites, images that don't reflect the quality of their events, or they have no information on previous year's events. This generation are judging you by what they see online. That's what they're used to. So make sure you've got good quality images. We have page styling features, which Angus is going to demo. That allows you to upload a catalogue of images, which can hopefully showcase that. Make sure you've got reviews and testimonials front and center. We, again, have a reviews feature, which you can use to capture reviews and display those on your websites, either internal using our review system, or we partner with RaceCheck as well. On the day of the event, look to kind of create that experience that goes beyond the race. Sometimes it's not that easy, we understand that, but if you can try and bring things in around the race itself, like music, tech, engagement, or just social sharing opportunities. This is a generation that wants to share content and be seen. So having those opportunities on the day can make a difference to that generation. Maybe try and bring an event village. Doesn't have to be huge, but maybe a food truck. Just a few things going on outside of the event that can feel more like an experience and that can get content that can be shared. And really important, don't forget to capture these moments. This is your time to capture this content that you can then use to share across your social media platforms, email marketing campaigns, in future years, and to sort of promote those events. And then finally, after the event, stay connected, keep the post-race celebrations going. This is a generation that wants to be kept up to date. Send personalized thank you emails. Again, Angus is going to show this, but we can schedule emails to go out. So if you're busy, you're packing up the event, you can have those emails ready to go. So as soon as you're finished, you can start a drip campaign of emails going to those participants. And important things, often simple but overlooked, is making sure you get your review information out, your result information out straight away, so people know where to go to find the results. Same with the photo galleries. People want to see themselves who have just run a race or participated in an event. And the same with your review emails. You can get those scheduled and you can be capturing that valuable information. So I'm going to hand over to Angus at this point. So Angus, could you show us some of the the page styling tools, scheduling those emails after the event, capturing results, image galleries and that kind of thing, using some of those eventrac tools that we have?
Yeah, with pleasure. Thanks for that update, Aaron. Stats are always great to see. So we're going to start off, as Aaron said, with the build up. And really this is, again, going to start on your event landing page. The styling is not complicated, but what we often see overlooked is actually an organizer putting themselves in the participant's shoes and going through that potential participant journey with them. Therefore, the cover image is obviously a key part of that. And then those first few sentences of your description are so important to sell your event. Some of you I know won't be using our landing pages and will just be using the widget. Therefore, being on brand on here is absolutely key, and making sure that your entry form is taking all of the information that you want without being too long and elongating the customer journey. So again, we couldn't recommend more highly looking at this. Some of the features we see as crucial to getting that engagement with your event are our route maps feature, which is the interactive map. Obviously, this is so relevant for mass participation events, and especially endurance events. A lot of the participants will be keen to do their homework on the course. And then, as Aaron mentioned, two other huge features are reviews and getting that social proof. And it's always cool to see when the organizers leave their feedback on reviews, and then results, again, specific to the Gen Z generation. They are keen to see that statistical data afterwards, and they're keen to see it quickly. And we have the ability for you to upload a link in advance of your event so that you do not have to think about one more step on event day and get the results out. They will be automated. But we do recommend at a later date uploading them as a CSV so that they can link back to each participant. And I'll show you that in a second. But that is the build up. And then on the day, we don't want you to have any admin. And as Aaron mentioned, we have the facility for you to program your email follow-ups. And the most successful organizers generally have a 3-stage process, which is a very polite thank you, which generally goes out on the evening of the event, and then 2 follow-up emails. One or even both could contain results and photos. And then the next and usually last one is going to be introducing next year's event with some form of hopefully promotional discount to really drive engagement and also obviously entries. And then hopefully once you've followed up with all of that, your participants will have their results. And here is a snapshot of how that could look as a participant. So here we're in my personal profile, and you can see my booking for the Friendly Marathon. And if I go to my results tab, it might take a second to load on your screens, but you can see my time. Clearly I had a good day and where I finished, and this will list any other results I might have. So in terms of that first stage of interaction, we see it as a really important to set the scene. And then there are other details that you can go into, for example, like adding your photo galleries to the bottom of your page. Again, this is just a snapshot of what your event would look like before, and then as a follow-up, you can add your gallery next to your results here. And this is a list of every single result from the day. And you can see the people that have claimed them, therefore it's gone into their profile. So yeah, in terms of creating the experience, that is where you start. And I think Aaron is going to talk about then the next stage, which is additional channels.
Yeah, thanks very much, Angus. So yeah, additional channels, this is the second area of focus. We know Gen Z spend a lot of time on the social channels, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. So if you're not using these channels, you might be missing out on some of this generation. It's not always easy to adopt these channels. So one of the best ways you can really make the most of them is to build influencer partnerships. And I personally think that influencer partnerships in 2025 going into 2026 are going to be huge for mass participation events. You know, these are people that have already built a network. They've already won their trust of their followers, and they can be a great way to get new people learning about your events and entering your events. We have a referral scheme that you can set up, and this can also be used to issue links to ambassadors or influencers. And then you can track how many people they are bringing, and you can reward them accordingly. But I think, yeah, influencers are a great way for companies who maybe don't have that in-house social media experience to bring someone in who does, or maybe a group of people, and they can tap into their networks. The other way here is to embrace marketplaces. So for those of you that have worked with us for a while, you'll know that we have integrations with various different marketplaces, Find a Race, Time Outdoors, Run ABC, Ahutu, others are on the way. But these are essentially aggregation sites that bring together events, and they help people find those events. So they all have their own network of people, their own communities, and some of them attract different generations. If we look at Find a Race in particular here, we see that they tend to attract a younger generation than some of the other platforms and some of the organisers themselves. So this can be a great way for you to get into that generation without doing too much effort. You know, enabling a marketplace like Find a Race, and they will start to hopefully send you some Gen Z runners, and then you can kind of convert those runners into your own participants in the future through your own internal marketing efforts. So Angus kind of whistled through there, but you know, social media, if organisers are using social media, obviously tracking is key, knowing where people are coming from. So can you go through some of the tracking tools we have, that referral scheme I mentioned, and how someone would go about enabling a third-party marketplace within their eventrac account?
Cool. Yeah. Obviously, we sincerely hope for all of those organisers looking to grow their events, they are using socials as well as their own email to try and channel entries. And really, if you are using multiple channels to promote the event, using tracking links is really important so that you can, whether it's just gauge where the entries are coming from or actually track spend. And it's very simple to set up. In the promote section of your specific event, you would build a new tracking link for each example of a platform you were using. So if you were using TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, you would have a link for each of those. And then this link would be dropped into the call to action button on each of those specific platforms. And then you can, through our exports, analyze and understand exactly where each specific booking is coming from there. So tracking links are a great start to understand exactly where your participants are coming from. But really, the refer a friend scheme or referral scheme is just a no-brainer for pretty much every single event, in our opinion. We have the facility for you to offer a single-sided scheme and a double-sided scheme. Generally, most people will offer double-sided so that both the referrer and the referee gets a reward, and those rewards can be tailored to whatever you want to offer, whether it's an absolute amount, let's say £5 off, or whether it is a percentage of the entry fee. And obviously it's one thing setting up the scheme, but it's another thing getting people to actually interact and share with it. So the best place that you want to encourage people to look and share this from is in a participant's account. So here I'm back in my Fast Events account. This is my ticket for the friendly marathon there. And we have the giant green button on the left-hand side, which is invite your friends. Once you click on that, that is the moment that generates a unique code, whether you copy it here or send it directly. If you have your SMS or WhatsApp linked up, then that is just a great way to get friends and family involved. And hopefully both of them will get a reward because of it. And then the third way that Aaron mentioned about growing through additional channels is the marketplaces. So our marketplaces live down in integrations on the left-hand set of menus. As Aaron mentioned, today we have 4, but in the future we're hoping to develop that. And today's example, we're going to use Time Outdoors. You can see here that it's enabled, but if we went in to manage it and it wasn't enabled, you would click on the button up here to get you started. But going into this gives you a snapshot of your most recent bookings, but then you also can see exactly where you acquired any individual participant in their sign up profile under the acquisition source. So again, this says Time Outdoors in this example. And then there is a third way to report on this before you get to the export process, and that is through your all sign up section. It is the source of the bookings, and I've just, again, resorted them here, and you can see that we've got a few from Time Outdoors, a couple from Run ABC, Find a Race, and a Who To. So all 3 of these channels are fantastic ways to grow your events, as Aaron said. So hopefully you can make use of as many or as few of them as you want. Aaron, back over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Angus. So third area, emphasize community health and sustainability. I said earlier that I think community is going to be a word we hear a lot about in mass participation. We know Gen Z are great online community builders, and I think this is the same for events. If we look at the rise in the informal run clubs, these are essentially fitness communities that have formed. Everyone's coming together with shared interests. Strava, again, in their report, reported that 59% increase in running clubs in 2024. So clearly, there's a strong interest from this generation to come together. And I see events as a great opportunity to do that. And that doesn't have to be around the event day itself. That can be by positioning your event as part of a broader health picture. So providing things like training advice, injury tips, highlighting local achievements can all go steps towards creating that community. Also, partnering with local businesses or local brands can also help build that community. Another way to do this is to highlight social causes. We know this is something close to Gen Z's hearts. So if you can demonstrate that your event is addressing social causes, that can be a great way to attract the generation. And also partnering with a charity is another opportunity here. So we have some great charity tools within eventrac that you can use to engage charities in various different ways. And we see that is a really powerful tool at the moment, particularly amongst this generation. Finally, demonstrate sustainability. We know Gen Z, they really care about the environment, and they are looking at your event and seeing what you're doing to address that. So if you can, try and take measures to become more environmentally sustainable, and make sure you're demonstrating this in your messaging. So some ideas are reducing single-use plastic, offering eco-friendly medals. We're certainly seeing more events going in this direction now. Other opportunities, again, using some of the tools we've got within eventrac, are to offer third-party products that we have in our store. So we have reusable cups, which you can now bring in, and you can sell those to your participants, so they can pay a small fee and then get a reusable cup, which is managed by the third-party merchant, and you even earn a commission on that sale. And these are great ways to offer an alternative option to people having to use maybe a plastic cup at the event. The other one here is trees, not teas. So you can offer an alternative to a t-shirt, and someone can either pay or you can gift the money to the Trees Not Teas, and they will go and plant a tree. So these are some of the ideas where you can demonstrate sustainability, which we know Gen Z are really paying attention to. So creating that online community, Angus, we've mentioned that it can be around the advice piece, training advice, injury tips. We have blog posts and news items built in. It's not a tool a lot of people know about within eventrac, but some accounts are using it to really good effect. Obviously, we've got the charity tools there as well. Can you show us some of those options that organisers could use to build that community, engage a charity, and maybe sell some of that third-party merch?
Yeah, with pleasure. So community, again, it's going to be a popular word throughout the year, I think, and it's just about creating that engagement. And so for everybody that has an eventrac account, you have a totally separate section to your events tab, and that is your website builder. And you have the ability to add any subheaders and therefore any additional content to your landing pages. And in this example, we're talking community, but as you can see, we've also got other excuses to engage with people. So about us, the company, results, and other specific events. But here we're talking about injury advice, we're talking about training tips, and again, any other excuse that you've got to engage with your community and send them towards your event pages are absolutely key. And so long as you have the content, it will take a matter of minutes to get that uploaded onto your pages. So community is key. That's going to be a big one going forwards. Sponsors is another fantastic one. And you have the ability in an eventrac account to add any partners that you have, whether this be big corporates or whether it be local councils. You can add their logo and you can add their direct links. We also encourage as well to potentially hero these sponsors in any pre or post race email communications, again, to value what they're offering you. So sponsors are a fantastic one. If you can get them, then yeah, we hope that you can value them to keep them. The charities is a huge subject in its own right, and we have a number of different tools. And on a future webinar, we will go into a lot more detail on this. But really, we've got two avenues for you to use on this. It is the donations part, whereby you can encourage donations through the registration flow. And then it's the charity partners and own place runners, whereby you can partner with charities and encourage people to opt into their marketing. And therefore they might become fundraisers for those charities. So they're the two big avenues. Obviously, we have a big piece about creating fundraising pages as well. We know how important they are to endurance events. So we integrate that seamlessly into the registration flow. And from a completely selfish personal point of view, the sustainability element is very close to be honest, all of our hearts at eventrac. And we are hoping to develop this piece even further throughout the year. But as we mentioned, we're starting to offer organisers the tools by which they can offer sustainable products or alternative options to an event participant. And a couple of examples Aaron used are a reusable cup. Again, we know how many people are in each event, and if we can replace a few single-use cups with a reusable cup, then we're all in a better place. And then the alternative to that, which is becoming more and more popular, is the trees not teas option. And they're a fantastic charity which are encouraging more and more people to potentially give up their nice event t-shirt and replace it with planting a tree. And so that's a very fun one. And they're creating some technology for us that will be able to hero the event organisers and the impact that those organisers are having on a really top level. So we're really pleased with what's to come on the sustainability. We think it's only the start, and we can contribute even a tiny amount to the global or rather UK picture of events, that then we'll be very happy. So yeah, all really close to our heart there, and can all be of benefit to the events, but obviously specifically to that Gen Z generation.
Cool, thanks Angus. So on to the final one here, demonstrating inclusivity and flexibility. So Gen Z expects events to align with their values of inclusivity, diversity, and representation. And I think this is a mistake sometimes that organisers in mass participation they make. So that they kind of focus on people wanting to run fast or cycle fast and hit PBs. This generation, they tend to prioritise shorter workouts. They're not necessarily entering events to hit a PB. So I think looking at your race distances and the options you're having is really important. So consider offering maybe more beginner-friendly options. Walking distances here can be a great alternative to running if you're in the running space. We look at Strava again. They reported a 52% increase in walking clubs in 2024. That's almost as much as the running club growth we saw. So clearly a huge area of opportunity there, I think, for organisers of events. Maybe consider looking at those options to add a walking distance, or something that's maybe more beginner friendly. Even sort of women only races are starting to gain some traction and can provide good results to your overall booking numbers. Gen Z as well, they like to participate in groups. We saw that stat at the start where they like to participate in fitness activities with friends. So make sure you've got things like team or group options. A lot of organisers, they overlook this area. They look at it as a solo race. Often, someone might want to run a half marathon themselves, but they would do it as a group. So consider looking at those sort of team or relay options. We've got some really powerful team ticket tooling within eventrac. We're not going to go through all that today because it would probably be a webinar in itself, but it gives you lots of flexible options there, and Angus will show you a few of those. And finally, make sure your messaging is portraying all of these options. So if you are going to offer beginner friendly distances or team tickets, then make sure you're letting people know. And we've got email marketing built in, and this is a great way to communicate some of those ideas. So handing back over to Angus for the last time, you'll be glad to hear. We're almost at the end of this now, but yeah, Angus, how can organisers look at maybe setting up some of these beginner friendly races in eventrac and showing people the distance, the team tickets we mentioned there, and also communicating this with something like email marketing?
Yeah, hopefully everybody on the call is already aware of how easy we make it to copy an event. But to hark back to what Aaron said there, this idea of catering for all abilities is becoming more and more prevalent, whether it be families or whether it be different styles of events. It's a couple of clicks to copy an event. You would update the distance, the activity, maybe the icons that you're using, and then you can offer a completely potentially different and complementary distance within the same event. So that is very quick and simple. Hopefully you're all aware of that. The team ticket is a very powerful tool, like Aaron said. This is an example of it. You can see an icon with multiple people here. And really, the top level on team tickets is twofold. We give you the ability, or we give rather a participant the ability to sign up everybody on the spot. They pay, they add all of the details, and that is job done. But also, we give an organizer the ability to set it up so that a participant doesn't necessarily need to commit or have all of the details for all of the team members ready to go when they sign up. That team captain, for want of a better word, will buy all of the tickets and reserve the places, but then within their account, they will have the ability to send out individual invites to those people for them to fill in their personal details as and when they can. So again, one of the buzzwords that we've mentioned a lot today is flexibility, and that means that you can play it whichever way you want. And then the last piece of the puzzle, really, and it applies to any additional races that you might add, but also really bigger picture applies to your whole account, and every event is the email communications. So we have our marketing tool, and in this example, we've got a template here about introducing the new registration categories, but really this can be used for any subjects and any reason to interact with your audience. And ultimately what these are, just an excuse for a call to action, whether it is to read more, and maybe you're directing them to your community pages on your website, or it might just be a direct call to action to get them to book in to that specific event. But email marketing is a free tool, and it is still a very powerful tool. So we can't recommend it more highly. So that's me done. Hopefully you've gained a bit for that. And now I'm going to hand back to Aaron just to give us a bit of a wrap up and finish it off.
Brilliant. Cool. Thanks, Angus. So yeah, last couple of slides here. So we've looked at how to attract your Gen Z participants, and now we're just going to look quickly at the retaining. And this is really an extension of what you would do to attract. So following on from what Angus just said there about staying connected with email marketing, as we've said throughout this webinar, this generation likes to be kept connected. They like to know what's going on. They're very brand aware, but they're not brand loyal. So to retain them is hard work. We know this industry struggles in general to retain people, and I think Gen Z is particularly hard to get them coming back year on year. You've got to keep connected. You've got to keep the communications going, providing things like blog posts and building that community piece will only help with this. Positioning your event as part of a broader picture is the sort of area we think you should be going in. Also consider offering things like membership. We have a membership system built in. Again, not a lot of people know about it within eventrac. We have some organisers using it to really good effect. That's where you can set maybe a monthly or a yearly fee. Doesn't even have to be a fee. It can just be a club that people join, and maybe they get exclusive benefits. So that could be early entry into an event. It could be a discounted entry. It could be maybe a free t-shirt, something like that. So lots of ways you can really try and build that loyalty program. And on that note, we also have a loyalty scheme that you can enable, so you can offer people points, which they can then redeem for rewards further down the line. So we've got lots of tools here that you can use, exclusive tickets being another one, maybe offer people that have come already a priority entry for next year at a reduced fee. You know, these are all some of the tools that we see organisers using, and particularly we saw in 2024 that really did produce good results in that Generation Z. And then finally, sort of build on that health conscious trend. Try and bring in brands if you can to your events and sort of inherit their sort of trust. Also influencers, I'll say it again, I think influencers are going to be massive going into 2026. So you can go out, you can find people that already got a following that maybe are in your space, that have shared interests, and you can try and get them into your event. Of course, you can give them commission. That's where you can use our referral scheme to track that. So lots of things you can be doing to retain. Again, I think this is probably a subject in itself. So we haven't gone into too much detail on this webinar today. Finally, just don't forget the bigger picture. I think it's very easy to sort of focus just on this area that we've talked about, the Generation Z, but in reality, all generations' habits are changing. People are becoming fitter and healthier. So I think you've just got to keep differentiating your events and make sure you don't distract just from one generation, and you keep your net wide. Generally, people are looking for more inclusive events. So I think those beginner-friendly options, those walking distances are going to be key to attracting more participants going into sort of 2025 and 2026. So just to wrap up here, I know we've got a couple of minutes left. As a summary, create experiences, not just events. Embrace social and digital channels. Focus on building a community, reward loyalty, and don't neglect sustainability. I think that's all from us today. Obviously, we've covered a lot of subjects there. We couldn't demo everything in the detail we would have liked to, but you would have probably been on this call today. So if you've got any questions on anything you've seen, then feel free to drop us a line. You can send me an email or Angus an email, or probably in the most easy way to get in contact with us is to use the live chat in the bottom right of your admin panel. But thank you very much for watching, guys. Hope this has been useful, and we've got plenty more of these to come in the future. Can't wait to share. Thanks a lot.